When I was 13 years old, for some reason I used to go to this local music shop and they had a drum kit in the window, and basically I, I had no idea why I was drawn to this drum kit. And basically in school I made myself a pair of drumsticks out of dowel rod. I like carved them and made the little nibs and stuff. Our parents bought me and my brother banjos for Christmas, and basically I threw mine at my brother and the neck snapped off. I was left with a drum and a little key, and you could tune it. So I snapped the neck off his and tuned the one differently, so I had two drums with my homemade drumsticks, and that's really how it started. And I sort of faked. I'd never played a kit before, but in school they had like a school band via the teachers, all the teachers, and then at the summer disco they would play each year, and the drummer was on like a summer trip with students, and they advertised for a drummer to sit in, and I basically went along, got the job, and I learned 12 tracks like off the top of the head, and I'd never played before, but I did the gig, right, and did it pretty well, I think. So I sort of blagged my way into doing it, really. But the drum kit was at rehearsal, so I didn't have to get one. And then the following Christmas I got a drum kit then. So that's how my career started, via a blag. Well, the memories of it was really all the hard work we put into the writing the songs to begin with. We actually wrote, I played on the first album, which is called Babylon, and we wrote 48 songs for that album and whittled it down to 14 tracks, which there was a few extra tracks for different releases and stuff. But it was during that time we recorded the album in a studio called Bass Heaven in Hollywood, and that was the first time I saw Pro Tools working, because we recorded our own demos. That's how I got into the recording thing, because RCA, the record label, gave us £30,000 as what they called a development deal. Yeah, so they gave us this money because we only had we only recorded 2 songs. That's all we could afford to go into a studio and record. So they gave us the money to write a album's worth of stuff, and if they liked it, then the full deal would get taken up. So basically they gave us 30 grand, so I went out and bought all microphones and everything. Instead of going to a studio, we saved a load of money and just partied for a bit. And then bought the equipment, recorded our own demos, and when we sent them in to RCA, then they picked the deal up into the full-blown deal, and that's when we flew to Hollywood to record Babylon. But they sounded really good, and it was like, shit, maybe I should get into doing this, because literally the rest of the people in the band, they had no interest, and they just wanted to go to a studio, do the demos, and waste loads of money. But I was like, no, I'll sort it out, which I did. And then recording Babylon, saw Pro Tools, and in particular, because in Skindred, I would program lots of sort of hip-hop grooves, any sort of groove, jungle, drum and bass type grooves, to be offset against what I was playing. But I could never get them in time. I had an MPC 60, which you couldn't even see the waveform on screen. It was just millionths of a second, and you just had to keep turning the wheel until you got the front and then the back, and trying to get that looped and recorded onto a hard disk recorder, which I bought, and then I put my real drums on. So to get them in time together, they were pretty close, but they always really, really annoyed me. And everyone else was like, I can't even hear what you're talking about. It sounds fine to me, but I could hear the little flammy glitch bits really annoyed me, because obviously being a drummer, time is is the most important thing. Timing is what it's all about. You're a clock, so that's your job, to keep time, really. So when I saw Pro Tools and they used Beat Detective to cut up my drums and put them in time on the grid, and then we flew the loops in that I'd built, it perfect. It was nailed. It was perfect. It's exactly how I could hear it in my head. And that was when I saw Beat Detective and Pro Tools in action. That's the time I decided to leave the band, really, and get into production, because it was now possible to do things that I thought of in my head but wasn't technically possible at the time. But it became possible. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, really. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't. I mean, God, when I was in the first band I was in, I actually moved to London for 10 years just to get the band off the ground. So, yeah, there's always a way. There was no internet back then, remember? Not as we know it. So I would phone record labels and try and book time to go in and see them, and they'd hear my Welsh accent and just, chuckle a bit and put the phone down, really. So the only way of like getting a record deal, the way I could see it, was to move to London, which is where the music business was, which is what we did. Me and Richard Parfitt, who's now one of the heads of the school, that was me and him moved to London. We got on the M4, hitchhiked. I moved to London with 50 pence and stayed for 10 years. Got a record deal, publishing deal, and then later on, all those people that I met within the industry became useful when I got Dub War together and Skin Dread later on. Those people that I met through that living in London, I slept in parks, hotel parks, back gardens for a long time, and I lived in squats. I had nowhere to live. I couldn't afford to rent anything. And then eventually, we got a record deal, and I was able to actually rent somewhere. And I've done that. I lived there for 10 years. So now we have the internet, right? No one has to move anywhere. I mean, that's how I literally I would wait in cafes and wait for people to finish their food and eat their scraps for years, for a couple of years. Me and Richard, who's now one of the heads of the university. But yeah, so it's unfortunately with the internet, all that's happened is it's a massive pool now. So you just got to be clever, and I don't know. It's like if you believe in it enough yourself, if you're an artist, a band, whatever, producer, engineer, if you believe you have the talents to do it, then I stopped at nothing. I literally upped and went to London with no money and made it happen. You know what I mean? So anything's possible. You just have to be really clever to stand out. You have to be different. But you do have the avenues there, and I know a lot of bands, they don't have record deals, but they're making money off the internet and YouTube and the rest of it by nowadays it's like the business has changed, whereas you would get, the album was a focus. I don't think that exists anymore. It's just songs. And I think the trouble with really the internet and the streaming thing is that I think younger people now, they're like what I call the next generation. And I don't mean they're the next. I mean, they'll listen to a song and it's like their attention span is pretty much zero. Next. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Because there's so much out there. It's like, and they got no patience. Whereas, before it would be the albums, the focus. Any bands I was into, I know when that release date was, and I'd be saving up my money to buy that record. You know what I mean? That doesn't seem to exist anymore. And out of that, you get it spawns a scene, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? But that don't seem. It's all connected, but nobody's connected. If that makes any sense. It's just millions of people all doing different things. It's like, whereas, you know, when we had Top of the Pops or whatever it was in my generation, me and all my mates on a Thursday, we would watch Top of the Pops and we'd see the Sex Pistols, and you go to see the Sex Pistols, that we all would have seen that programme. Now, with media being so vast, it's like there's no group of, you know what I mean? It's difficult to grow an army of followers because it's all disconnected, even though it's all connected. It's weird. The more connection we got, it seems to disconnect everything, because we'd all focus on the same thing, and in school the next day we'd all talk about the Sex Pistols, and it's like, oh brilliant, the album's coming out on this date, and we'd all, do you know what I'm saying? So we'd all focus, and it's like, and that would be happening all over the country, all over Europe, all over, so instantly you get this army of fans, you know. Fans is money. It's as simple as that, really. So you can do it. You can do it with Facebook. Obviously, you're connected to a lot of friends that you've never met. It's not really friends, but you just have to be really clever. It does exist. I know some people are making a good living. In fact, they're making more money than they would if they signed to a label, because the label would take all the money and you would get nothing anyway, or you get very little. So it is possible, but you have to be pretty sharp, and it has to be a 24/7 thing, really, which is no different from me up in sticks and moving to London. I was 24/7, only I was cold a lot of the time. Really, what any band or artist should be focusing on is the songs, really. Songs is all important. It's difficult because labels are still signing, you know, but it's so, they don't want to take a punt anymore or take a chance on things anymore, because they have their, you're like, again, like in my day, you would have all the massive artists that make a ton of money, and they got so much money that really all new bands is a tax dodge. Yeah, but also they get a punt, at what I call a bet, basically. So money would trickle down to the niche markets, you know what I mean? The niche bands. That's closed off, more or less. They're just hanging on to their money now from the big artists. It's like they can't be bothered to, it's too risky, you know what I mean? So again, it's YouTube, and it's like you concentrate on the songs and your image and whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's pop, rock, metal, doesn't matter. As long as those songs are perfect, are like perfect songs, then the rest will come. It's that important. The song is everything. So if you focus on, you know, the songwriting is the most important thing. On the songwriting courses here now, I do believe, with Rich and stuff, that's what I'd advise any songwriter to do, or any band, that, because the rest will follow. It really will. It'll, like, you will get searched out if you've got good tunes. Because that's all that's, you know, good tunes are always going to stand the test of time. Bad ones never will.